live. Thank you for tuning in to the Savage Spatula Podcast. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Shalom Salinas, and I am the host of the Savage Spatula Podcast. Right now, I am a student at Wilfrid Laurier University. Just putting in the grind, and I do my thing on the side, but I am really passionate about podcasts, and it's something that I've been planning for a very long time, and happy now that it has come to fruition, that now I can actually provide people with the content that I think that they're going to want, and hopefully you guys do want it, and I'm really excited about this. The podcast is going to be available on YouTube Live, so anytime that I'm about to go live, I will send an update through my social media and let you guys know to tune in. It'll also be available on iTunes and Spotify on the next day. So if you're looking forward to downloading it or just to listen to it on your phone, whatever it may be, make sure to check the links that I have posted and you'll be able to stay updated. Thanks, guys. This is the first time that I have done a podcast, so you may be wondering, why did I name it the Savage Spatula? Now, it is somewhat of a childish reason, but, it does bring back some funny memories. When I was a kid, my mom used to hit me with a spatula, straight up. I'm not going to lie. It was painful. It hurt. It is what it is. But it's just a funny memory of what sometimes we go through as kids, and especially me as a Latino kid. We have these weird objects that in your home you sort of associate with, if you're going to get in trouble, you're going to get this done to you, right? But it's nothing serious. It's just something that I thought was really funny. And at the end of the day, it's just something creative to get your mind thinking of what we're going to be talking that day. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully you have fun in this podcast. All right, so I have my boy Luis Villar on the podcast with me. So if you guys could give him a warm welcome, and Luis, tell us a bit about yourself, if that's okay, man.
Hello. I'm Latino. I don't know if you can notice that by the name. Family from Guatemala. I was born in Mexico. My family was on the run, so it was either Mexico or Canada that I was going to be born, and so happened to be that I wasn't born in Mexico City. Current student right now at the University of Laurentian, studying to be a gerontologist. For those who don't know what that is, essentially it's the study of aging.
All right, man. Well, our boy's out here doing big things. I thank you for coming out today, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me on.
It's the first episode that we have of the podcast, and I've been telling some of the guys it's something that I've been working on for a long time, and it just it feels good being able to finally put it into action, right? So
yeah, man, that's the biggest thing with anything in life. You always think about these dreams, about these goals, about these ideas, but it just takes that first step and just taking that motive of risk and just put it through into action,
Exactly. Like, there's so many things. Like, you see, like, half the kids, like, even like high school kids, university kids, anyone in post-secondary, that's literally what it comes down to. Like, you see them think of these amazing ideas, or like even like business ideas they can have, inventions, whatever it could be. But it's that same thing. They just feel like they can't, or they feel held back, and it's crazy, and it leads them not being able to do like what could potentially be something really incredible, right? It's insane.
Precisely that, my brother. We see, your story is just like a whole ton of others that are out there, especially when it comes to this new era of social media, where you see up and coming stars just coming from YouTube, from Instagram, from Facebook, from a Vine, if that's still a thing that's popular, Snapchat. It's insane, man. Like, just recently, like have you heard of the one Canadian lady? Her ethnicity is Indian, I'm pretty sure. Lily Sai, I think that's her name.
Lily Sai.
Superwoman.
I can't say I have. No.
Anyways, she is a perfect example, man. She started off on YouTube, just built her brand, got subscribers. She's doing big things. She does a bunch of skits on her channel. I'm pretty sure she's had movies or maybe some kind of TV spots. She's done featured collaborations with big stars. The Rock, for an example, man. She did something with The Rock. And just recently, she is going to have her own late night show.
Oh, yes. You know what? I did hear about her. I did hear about her. That's
Big
insane,
things, man.
man.
This girl's doing
Holy
big
moly.
things. Yeah. So, much respect and shout out to Superwoman to, start from the bottom. Now she's here.
Yeah, straight up. Holy moly.
Yeah,
And
brother.
that's the one that's gonna be like on the same channel as some of the other late night shows, right? Is that the one?
I believe so. I honestly can't remember the exact details, but I think she's gonna be on the same network as uh, Jimmy Fallon, I believe. I
Oh
could be wrong.
man,
Wrong.
jeez.
Yeah, but
That's
she's taking
insane.
like the late show hour, of course.
Yeah, yeah. That's still sick though,
Yeah, but
regardless.
yeah.
So props to
Regardless,
her.
she's gonna have her own thing. And once again, like the crazy thing is that she actually shared this with Jimmy Kimmel that she has so much power that she can start the show from scratch. So knowing her, man, we're gonna see something amazing.
Yeah, that's sick. That's sick, man. It's good to see that stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure. First for being a woman, which is huge, being a minority as well, a visible minority, uh, and someone from Canada too, man. That's
Yeah, man. That's some
awesome.
big moves. Straight
Yeah.
up. Straight up. Did you happen to see like Connor's latest tweet, Conor McGregor's latest tweet saying that he's announced that he's now officially retired?
I have seen that. Yes.
Man, this is it's so crazy to think what's going on, man. Like there's so many things going on in his life, and you could say like he's at the peak of his career, and all of a sudden he decides that he wants to retire.
You know, there's so many ways that I could take this. The first thing that I think of is that this guy is still a very young man. You know, he still has his still a bunch of years left in the tank to put in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He is, and being person that he is too. It's been a while since we've seen a fighter like this who just has so much charisma, so much showmanship, and has the ability to just perform and trash talk his opponent.
Yeah.
What it said. I don't know about you, man, but this is something I just love to see and hear, man. Like the way this man just handles and can takes control of a crowd of a moment. I just think back of his previous opponents who he just he just obliterates them verbally, just
Yeah.
messes them up verbally, and of course the most uh, I guess popular recent one aside from Khalid was Money Mayweather.
Yeah, man. That
The
was
verbal battle. Oh my gosh, man.
that's unreal, man. Like it's
Yeah,
crazy. Like you often think that like a fighter only trains to to step in either it be in the boxing ring or the octagon, whatever it may be. You think like these guys only train like physically, even mentally to a certain extent. But like it almost feels like this guy like takes it to another level because like his trash talk, his like his mental game against other people is just so strong. It's crazy, man.
yeah, definitely that. But it makes me wonder too, though, because you know, Conor McGregor is one beast on his own. But then when I come to think of the different UFC fighters that come from different backgrounds of mixed martial arts, for example, for our own George St. Pierre, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It's like
when I think of George St. Pierre, he's nothing at all of Conor McGregor when it comes to his vocal ability. He's a very humble, very down to earth. He's very respectful. Like he seems very educated with not just mixed martial arts, but the philosophy behind it or the way of living, if I can say that. You
yeah, I
know,
guess like no, I get where you're coming from, right? I don't know if it's like maybe his upbringing or just the way
that's
he is,
yeah,
right?
that's the thing I want to know about. Like with all these other mixed martial arts, like I'm pretty sure there must be that kind of aspect that's also brought into when it comes to that comes become a teaching component as well, not just learning about fighting and defending yourself, but also like that self-discipline that you learn about, that respect to your teachers, to your masters, to your senseis, to your senpas, or to your sifus, depending on which martial arts you're
Yeah,
learning from. But
exactly,
you
exactly.
know, it's
Look,
just interesting that we're having a bunch of other fighters who you can see. Again, this is nothing, and it's not to like put down any of the fighters who are all like very they trash talk and all that. Like, of course, that's something that we all love to see. Like, it really builds up the fight for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It adds like a little bit of flavor to
Yeah,
it.
definitely, definitely. But it just interests me. Like, I wonder if Conor McGregor had any teachings about uh, any of those ancient I don't know, like ways of life of the martial arts, or how to compose yourself, or what kind of etiquette you're supposed to have. But maybe he does do that. Maybe when he does go to work, he's all about that. And then when it comes time when he's not fighting and he has to promote a fight, and that's where he just unleashes the verbal beast.
Yeah, straight up, man. Straight up. Like you could even see it in like one of his first fights where he got his first belt, like against Jose Aldo. Like
Mm.
he was facing like easily one of the greatest in the featherweight division. Like the man had defended his title so much, and Conor had gotten into this man's head to the point that like the fight started, and this man did not even think of like a game plan. He just rushed at him, and obviously like Conor took advantage of that, and boom, just knocked him out. Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, yeah, and you think like, man, like for me, like I'm a fairly simple person, so I could maybe after a few minutes of trash talk, I'd get annoyed. Like, imagine having to deal with it for 4 months, man, touring around with him and all that. That's insane, man.
Hmm. And note that this is only the trash talk that we see or hear about. Like, I can only imagine what goes on behind the scenes,
Exactly.
uh, via emails or via text message or via phone calls. But there's also that aspect that we, the public, do not get to know about or see or hear about.
Exactly.
I would hear subtle stories every now and then that would come up about fighters, how they trash talk, or even just athletes in general, such as the never-ending bits of details that you hear about Michael Jordan, that something new pops out, but like how he would mentally prepare himself and how he would mentally and vocally trash talk. And
Yeah, yeah, it's insane, man. All these things, right?
yeah, it's something that you don't think about, but it makes sense, right?
That's true,
It's
man.
really cool.
That's true. Like it, and like now with him retiring, like it begs the question, like, how much money does this man really have? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's insane. You think that like him retiring is bad because this is this man's livelihood, right?
Yep.
But like I've always wondered, like, man, I guess like to a certain extent, people think that he may not be like the greatest of all time, but in his short time that he was in the UFC, he did accomplish what he said, right? He said he was going to become a two-division champ. He said he was going to change the game, like in terms of pay-per-views and like in terms of like how much money he was going to bring in, and which like really thinks is like him retiring really isn't that bad for him, but if anything, it's bad for the UFC. Like I don't know if you feel me, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know,
Like
he's the thing about Connor is that he says he speaks his mind, man. He does when it comes to that moment where he's in front of the crowd and he just like eats that energy up. He lives for those moments. He says what he wants to say, and I'm pretty sure he said that it's because of him that his opponent's gonna get a big check,
yeah,
or
straight up, man.
anybody any of the other fighters around him, they're gonna get some some kind of benefits from this because he's also in the main card, right? So more pay-per-view buys and all that. I don't know how it breaks down to each fighter, but I can only imagine that for sure, like you said, if he goes, um, who's gonna step up and take over what he's created and what he's carried through? You know,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it's people say they can talk trash and all that, but I don't know, man. I've seen some cringy stuff.
Yeah, it's like in
Of,
those compilations where it's just like awkward, man, and you just like trying to stand up to them or trying to like bring them down. It's just like, nah, dude, just shut up, man. Just shut
yeah,
up.
man. It just sounds so bad, and then you can it's so obvious that they're trying to do that Conor McGregor persona, but it's not them. I find that I don't know what the art of trash talking is, but I can imagine it must be something that you must start doing very young, or maybe, or right off. I don't know. I don't know how long you have to be trash talking to get really good at it.
Yeah.
But to have that competitive edge and to also have that ability to word things in a certain way that actually gets to your opponent's head, that's an art itself.
Yeah, like it's unreal, man. Like I don't know how he does it, man. Like his last four fights. So basically, the UFC has like these five fights that have like are their top pay-per-view fights. His last four fights are the top four. Like
That's
it's
insane.
and each one of them is breaking 1 million pay-per-view buys, and that's not even including his Floyd Mayweather fight, which like so it's unreal. Like I was reading this statistic. I don't know like the accuracy of it, but it's saying that the moment that Conor like began like his journey as like the official Conor McGregor. So once he had a belt, right?
Yeah.
He like amassed for the UFC a total of $4 billion of just like customers coming in getting UFC memberships like for their UFC pass and buying pay-per-views, which is unreal, dude. Like that's actually ridiculous. Like
Yeah. See.
$4 billion, dude.
Yeah. The impact that this man has done, and it also kind of makes you wonder of something else too, because he's a proud Irishman, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And I'm for certain that when the Irish people heard about this man, about their own Irishman, always being very, very proud of his country, uh, and always, going back to his roots and like shouting out his countrymen and all that stuff. I can only imagine how many Irishmen have been like supporting Connor with purchasing those pay-per-views or doing those subscriptions as you have said. But I completely forgot about that point that you brought up about Mayweather's fight, because yeah, who knows if he even cashed that in yet, because yeah, this man was making money. Nothing compared to that boxing fight, but for UFC, it was for sure it was something different and unheard of.
yeah. It's something different for him, right? But it's just unreal. And like talking about all that money, right? It's like it's crazy how just one person could have all that money. Right? It makes you think of like what like places like governments or a whole country could have. Right? It's unreal. Like
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you're familiar even with here like locally in Ontario, right? Um, with Doug Ford, all these changes that have happened, right? It's just crazy, especially with something like OSAP, right? Um,
mm,
and for those that don't know what OSAP is, it's basically a funding program where the government gives gives you money. So it lends you money and it gives part of it as a loan and part of it as a grant, which is very nice for students. Any student going to post secondary or having their post graduate studies, it's something that like we can rely on as like a steady way of paying like your studies, right? And it's crazy now that like so much has changed in it that like it begs a question like where is all this money going to go now, right? Like
yeah,
they're getting rid of so much of it and bringing it into other places that you're just shocked of what's going on, right?
yeah. It's seems to be always like this back and forth thing with the conservatives and the liberals. You see the liberals put majority of these funds into the people, into students, for example, and then you see the conservatives take these funds from the people and put it to elsewhere, other things. It's OSAP is such a great program that this government does for their students. And to be in Canada, I'm so fortunate to live in this country for one, and for two to have this type of program to give me that financial aid to pursue my studies, to continue uh, going up the ladder in my education,
Yeah, yeah,
and especially for students who are just not able to, man. Like Canada, as we're a multicultural country. Uh,
exactly.
so many immigrants near and far coming from different walks of life, different countries, uh, whether through whether through its I don't know, through war, terror, whatever the case may be. But it's such a great thing that we can know that we can still you know get our education, get a degree, and not have that worry that, hey, my parents don't make that much, or don't have to take out some kind of serious loan or anything like that. Well, it's still a serious loan from the government, of course, but
Yeah,
hey,
sure.
it's something that for sure. I don't know if any other country does this, but I know for the States doesn't do anything like this besides scholarships, unless you're like I don't know, a freak of a smart student or a freak of a athlete.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's crazy. Like as you said, like the liberal and conservative, they're I don't know, they're hacking money from one place, putting it in another, right? But I think that this one is going to hit a little closer to home, if I'm being entirely honest. Um, as someone that has, I haven't depended like my whole schooling on it, but I have used it, right? And I have to admit that I wouldn't have gone to school in that semester if I hadn't used it, right? And it's crazy to think that now they've changed so many things, right? Like they've changed the amount of money that you get in terms of grants, and they've
Yeah,
they've, they've decreased it, right? So you're gonna get a
a
massive
huge
loan,
chunk. Yeah.
yeah, and a very small grant, which sucks,
Yeah.
right? Before it used to be a very balanced, but now it's I
Mhm.
don't know, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's very lopsided now for sure. And I remember like when I first went to school, how it started. Like, in order for you to gain that to apply for OSAP and to hopefully gain it, your entire household income has to be under a certain level. And then a few years passed by, and then apparently this program of the 30% off tuition came about. And then another discount came along for families who only make about this amount.
Yeah, yeah.
Then who is it? Is it Kathy or Kathleen or latest or ex?
Yeah, Kathleen Wynne.
Yeah, Kathleen Wynne. And then she comes out of nowhere and just drops this bomb on all of us where it's like 100% free tuition. I'm like, what?
And that's just I'm like, okay,
What?
all right.
Then I'm telling you right now, every student who was not in school
Boom,
jumped
ran
on
to
that
sign
off
up, man.
ASAP, man.
Dude, the number of applicants to become doctors just became
Well,
a massive list, dude.
for sure, 100%, man.
Man, like the changes, man, like it's I don't know, man. It's like obviously I can't put myself in their shoes, right?
Mm,
I'm not the premier of Ontario, but there are some things that you feel like you could make a decision with just like pure common sense, man. Like
yeah.
like as someone that like I'm since I'm like I'm graduating at the end of April,
Hey,
and yeah,
congratulations.
thank you, man. But let's say just as for example's sake, I would have accumulated, for example, $40,000 in terms of
Yeah.
OSAP money that has been lent to me, right?
Yeah.
Before you had like a period where they gave you 6 months, and after those 6 months, they would start charging you the interest, right? Because I guess they understood that you're not going to get like a job like exactly the moment you graduate, right?
Yeah.
Like unless you
That
put in the
rarely
work,
happens.
unless you put in the work like while you're still in school, so it times out perfectly. But even then, right, the chances are so slim, right? But now they've literally taken that out. So the day you graduate, that's the day that your interest starts, man. And it's unreal because it's
Yeah.
just gonna accumulate, right?
Well, I want to give you this nugget right here because, uh, again, this is like I've been to two colleges before. Right now that I'm in university, and the first time I went to college after the year, I was also surprised by this. Apparently, this grace period, 6 month grace period, even at that time, was just complete fluke. Like, sure, you didn't have to make any payments, but you were still being charged interest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, after the 6 months, it came out that I already had accumulated an extra on top of the loan, an extra six bills, I think, $600, something like that.
Wow, just on interest.
Just solely on interest, man. It came to like I think it was around 3 point something of daily interest.
That is absurd, man.
Yeah.
What the heck?
So this was even before um again all these changes happen, which again this is something that as we all students we don't really pay attention to the fine print, or we don't really actually to break it down and see what else is the government kind of trying to hide from us. right?
That's
It's
crazy, man.
like the same thing with like the minimum payments. Like if you just do the minimum payments, then oh man, you're in for the long haul.
Man, and it's crazy. Like, is that what, like, I don't know. Like, as a student, it's not like you have, let's say, $300 to spare every 2 weeks, right? I
Mm-hmm.
understand the times are hard, right? And even
Yeah,
if you're working part time, it goes to pay phone bills, rent, whatever it may be, right?
exactly.
So, like, you feel like that they would take this into consideration. And, like, I just throw this out there too. You know that Doug Ford, at the end of the day, I respect the man that, he got there through sheer hard work or whatever it may be. I'm not going to question that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he the farthest he got in school was actually grade 10. That's it. Grade 10.
Are
So
you kidding me?
yeah, so I actually found this out yesterday. I was reading an article, and he was being interviewed by this journalist, and he said that grade 10 was the highest he had achieved. And like, I'm like, he is making this decision on behalf of all the post-secondary students in Ontario, and he has not even experienced post-secondary school to begin
Yeah,
with.
not at all.
So I'm like, to begin with, he probably doesn't even care of it, right? Because
No.
from what I have heard, now I said I may be wrong. They are diverting a lot of this money into horse racing, so the races at Woodbine, and to attract a lot more investments through that and tourism, which part of me understands, but I believe education is going to be more important. I don't know, man. There's a lot of
100%.
questions, right?
100%. If Doug if Doug Ford is going to gamble, make this sort of gamble on putting money towards attractions that is going to, I guess, attract people from different countries, or I don't know, wealthy people within the country, and not make an investment into the next generation and their future. And all these students, one way or another, are just going to accumulate more debt and struggle trying to get debt free. I don't know.
That's
But that tidbit you just said me, that's for sure something that I can now say that Doug Ford does not empathize whatsoever.
Yeah,
He can
like, it's like and even like, if you sort of just put aside his, I guess, his position, and sort of just analyze him as a person, right? Just as himself, he is in a fairly wealthy family. And I don't know if you ever kept up with um his brother Rob Ford.
Yeah,
Uh, it
he rest in
he
peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rob Ford. He was a man of the people, and he even himself, he would say it in his videos, that he would post that, that they were well off, and then, they had grown up in a nice neighborhood, et cetera, and et cetera. So, like, when it comes to, like, eliminating free tuition for low income families, right? He doesn't really understand that point of view,
Hmm.
right? And that's, like, personally, I think that's what, like, the foundation and the pillar of OSAP is, right? It was created for people that didn't have enough money to go to school, or had enough money for other things, which were necessities like paying your house or paying your car, but just couldn't afford to go to school, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like he's just almost insensitive to the education system we have in Canada.
You know what's crazy? So I've had the opportunity to work at a factory, and a lot of the workers there who've been there for 20 years would tell me uh, of their experience. And apparently, this just like Doug Ford, like a lot of them finished their studies or high school at around grade 10 as well. And apparently there was a lot of them who left school because of, the factory business was booming, the industrial, uh,
Oh, okay, okay.
all that stuff was booming. So because they were able to get into the factory work life and also move up into the ranks to obtain higher positions, which result
Oh,
in
okay,
pay.
okay.
So I would hear a lot, especially from the sons of these guys, that they would tell me that, yeah, their father started off at the factory, but he worked his way to become the lead hand and to the foreman, and then into corporate, and now he's making big bank.
Oh, snap. So this
So
is
this,
like, these
yeah,
people were in for a long haul then, right?
yeah. So like during, like, I guess, the 80s and the 90s, like this was a pathway for a lot of people to think like, why am I going to go continue in school when I know right now at the age of 16 I can make some good money, but also work towards something higher. And by the time I'm 20, I'm already making big bang. But of course, this doesn't happen to everyone. But I can't say this is something that might have happened to Doug Ford or Rob Ford. I don't know
Yeah, that's
much
true.
about
That's
their
true.
biography, but I just wanted to say that just that at that time, like for his generation, that's how it was.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Like, and even like in contrast to like our generation, like
Mm,
even just trying to think that, like I sort of I'll take into like account like my dad. He works at a factory, right? And
yeah,
he's, he's very well remunerated, but like you can't, I guess nowadays, take that same approach, right? You can't expect that if you work 20, 30 years in a company. Now I'm talking about nowadays, right? In this
hmm,
generation, right?
yeah,
Expect that you're going to grow in that chain of command. Because the way it's set up, the way our society is set up, is that even for like the most minimal things, they're asking a minimum of high school and then maybe just like a specialization in a certain field or whatever it may be, right?
yeah,
Um, and like if people can't pay for school, right, then that's just gonna, well, in reality, it's gonna mess a lot of people up. But
hmm,
it just begs the question, right, like whether education is gonna become like a priority for some of these people, right?
yeah, for sure. Like I've been hearing that again, you can clarify this if you know better than I do, that where your father works at, they just don't not that they don't accept everyone, but like one requirement for sure is what they're looking for now is that the individual has the ability to understand, to read, and to communicate in English, but
Yeah,
fluently.
exactly, exactly.
Because I know from where we come from, we know a lot of friends of my father, your father, who are also friends as well, who work at that factory as well. And there's a huge proportion who are uh, they're immigrants, and and we can
Yeah.
say a lot of them don't really got the English down pat, and they've been here for 20 plus years.
Yeah, man. They like if for real, man, they still got that fresh off the boat vibe, right? Like like all with all respect to them, I love them, right?
Yeah, of course,
But
man.
like it's insane. You put it into perspective, like if they were to apply, like let's say today or tomorrow, you know, I really doubt most of them would get that job, right?
Yeah,
And it's because maybe because as you said, like in their generation, it was easier to sort of grow in the chain of command, right?
yeah,
And all power to those people that were able to get as high as they could, right?
for
In those
sure.
times, because it would just suck, right? You work, and then just like some younger guy that just came out of, let's say, college and then went to university, just replaces you in a heartbeat, right? Um, and it's crazy, man. Because like when it comes to like all this education stuff, man, like if there's one thing that I've learned in school, man, it's just to like do your thing and do it because you love it, man.
Yeah.
Because like I'm with a lot of like there's like this weird like notion around Laurier in certain programs. So I don't know if you've ever heard, but there's a program called BBA, so it's Business Administration. And there's
Yeah.
this weird notion around like all like the students are in that program. Like there, for some odd reason, every student that is in that program, they just feel so like pompous, man. Like they feel like they're above everyone, or they feel like so haughty, right? Like I'm top of the world, right, man? And like it's crazy. Like obviously you see this anywhere you go into school, right? But for some odd reason, it's everyone in that program. I'm like, yo, what's up, dude? Like at the end of the day, we're all gonna have a job after this, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
Yeah, it's interesting that people develop, that Devo or diva kind of personality when they really haven't gotten anywhere in life yet.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I was scrolling on Twitter, and this tweet that just made me just die, man. I was dying. Is this girl basically just tweeting out at all the BBA students saying that like they're dressing like they're gonna go to a board's meeting or a boards of director, but in reality they're just failing all their classes. And that's like,
Woo.
I'm like, oh snap, man!
Yeah,
You didn't have
shots
to go
fired.
on them like that. But it's crazy, man. Like
it's crazy how like maybe as humans, I don't know if it's our need to be like to have attention or what it is that like we just want to be superior to others in all aspects, like in terms of we like with cars and houses and then even school. Like it's crazy to what point it's gotten to, right?
Yeah, man, it's to each their own. Everybody has, I guess, their upbringing and
Yeah,
the way they
exactly.
kind of see the world, right? You know, you have people who are just like that, but you have others who are fairly humble. Is I don't know, man. It's just yeah, you're just starting from the bottom and you're already thinking that you've accomplished so much. But hey, real world life lessons are the hardest ones. So
That's
they're gonna
true.
know right away once they're out in the field, unless they're extremely gifted.
That's
And
true.
like Connor, they can they can back up what they say. Then hey,
Fair
it's
enough. Fair enough. Fair
there are
enough.
those people that exist, right? And then apparently in this world, there's two types of people. You're either a sheep or a wolf.
That's
So
true, man. That's true. All the
yeah,
power to those people then.
yeah.
That's true. I can't deny that, man. Did you just sort of just change in the note here, but um man, last week with that shooting that went down in New Zealand, man, that I was telling my parents, I'm like, man, that changed my perspective on so many things, dude. Like
100%.
it's crazy. It's crazy. Like there's just so much hate going on, and man, it's numbing, man. Like as a world, as just humankind, we've become so numb to it, man, that like we're like, oh yeah, it happened, and then tomorrow we move on, right? That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't like I don't know. I'm not. I don't follow New Zealand as much as maybe I should. But this is the first time I've legitimately heard of something major happening in New Zealand, and it happens to be this like a terrible thing like that, man.
Yeah, it's just so mind. And again, like you just touched on it right there. Is it's so numbing because again, it's something that like wow, this happened again. From everything that we hear from the states of like all these shootings in schools, or shootings in churches, or police brutality, and then you hear something like this coming from New Zealand. It's just like, man, in what way are we growing as a people, man? Like, for history, like we remember those iconic names of Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa or such on and such forth of these people, trying to, fight for just human rights, just what is correct and what is incorrect. So
Exactly,
then when
man.
you hear this kind of thing happen again, it's just like, man, we are not progressing as people, as human beings. And man, a friend of mine actually, in a group chat, sent us the link of the actual video. And when I
Oh
saw it, and it
man,
was just, oh my goodness, man. Like, it's like this man was playing a real life game of Call of Duty or something.
oh, oh man, it's the video is heartbreaking, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. You just hear the pain, the screams of these people in their mosque, and this guy would just still unload clips on them.
That's
And
just
what really what doesn't make sense to me is that he spent a good amount of time in that place, in and out, coming in and out, walking around either in the mosque or outside, but at no point was like, does anybody have cell phones to make a call of 911 or anything like that or capture something on video? Because it was until this man left and like he was pretty far from the mosque, then was it appeared this here the sound of sirens.
man, dude. That like it's crazy, And then and just so, like to get a little bit of perspective, right? Um, right now, CBC just published an article in just in 2018 in the U.S. Just to give us a reference, there have been
Yeah.
307 shootings. 307 shootings, man. New Zealand from 2000 to 2019, there has been one shooting, and it's been that one right there, right in Christchurch. And it just took them that shooting, just that one shooting, to start changing their gun laws, man. And you sort of come back to the U.S., even to Canada, right? Lately in Canada,
Yeah.
we've had a few shootings, not of that magnitude, just just slightly different. I don't know, maybe in Canada is not as prone to that, but it's just insane that like some of these things, as I said, we're so numb to it that we think that changing laws is just going to be useless, and we just let people live their ordinary lives and try not to change anything, and think that that's going to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Like you would think that, I don't know, man. Like it's crazy because I, I don't know if they ever discussed this, but was it because he had like feelings against them, or I don't know if they ever expressed that.
Yeah,
No.
those are good questions, man, because I too have not followed up to look into that much detail. I didn't even know if they caught the guy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, at least that. But yeah, when it comes to question why he did it, like I don't know if it was is that simple to say it's just a hate crime.
yeah. That no, that's like it's like what was it? Like what drove him to do that?
Yeah.
Like I know like it's a lot of people. I'm sure there's a lot of people analyzing him, like seeing why did he do this? Like
Hmm.
was it nurture versus nature, stuff like that. Like was he
Yeah.
was he brought up in a place that hated the Islamic culture, or was he brought up in a neighborhood that maybe was surrounded by a lot of Muslims, whatever it may be? I don't know, man, but like regardless
Yeah.
of what it was, it was not right, right? You know what I mean? Like there's too much hate going around, man. There's too much hate, and regardless if they're Muslim, if they're Buddhist, if they're Christians, no one deserves to die like that, man. It's terrible,
100%.
man. It's terrible
100%.
because and even that, like that could lead into another question, right? Which is something we could talk about in more depth, right? It's like immigration. Oftentimes like immigration is good for the country, right? But it often leads to sometimes things like this, right? Now I'm not saying that immigration is bad by no means, but
Of course.
like some people could interpret it that way, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's it's thank you for bringing that up because I think about that a lot as well. I'm living in Sudbury right now for school, and the majority of people that I see, for sure, is African, Indigenous, Caucasian, and Indian.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I understand for sure. Canada. That's what we are. We're a country that uh, we're like a place where people can come to be free from war, from political corruption, from gangs, from whatever type of uh, I don't know circumstance that they're going through. We are a place. Canada is a place of refuge. And apart from for me, I'm thankful for Canada because for my family, this was a place that was a refuge for us. And maybe you can say something similar about your family as well.
Yeah,
We are very
exactly.
blessed to be accepted into this country, and I'm so thankful to be living here in Canada for those reasons. So I can't push away these immigrants who are running from a similar circumstance or something along those lines. It's how who am I to push them away or say no? There's too many immigrants. The immigrants are good, but I worry that you know at this rate of immigrants coming into Canada, uh, will it have a negative impact in terms of um, immigrants not learning or knowing the Canadian way of life or Canadian etiquette, if I can say that? Or will too many at so much of a time will still bring in their bad habits or their bad notions from their home countries?
Yeah.
Will they just stick to their own and uh, I don't know, cause some sort of cultural indifferences with others that are just clashing, and then the only way to solve that problem is by violence, you know?
Yeah, it's that's a like I don't know, for a lot of people you could consider that like immigration would be like a taboo, right? You know what I mean? No
Hmm.
one no one really wants to talk about it. And right now, there's a website called immigrationwatchcanada.org. For anyone that wants to check it out, it has all the stats from 2018 all the way to 2019, right? And it has live stats, right? So as of now, as of March 29th, we have 73,942 immigrants that just
That's
came
crazy.
in. Like in just this month. Like, just to put that into perspective, that is a lot of people, man.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
like, that's like, holy moly, dude.
That's a
Um,
lot of people. Yeah,
in
100%.
um in the year 2017, we took in 300,000 immigrants. Now, like, as you said, there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's, in reality, everyone's looking to better their lives. Everyone has different circumstances, right? It could
Yeah,
be
that new
war.
hope, a new
It could be
life.
war. They're running away from something terrible that's going back home. Whatever it may be, right? I'm not taking that away from them, right?
Yeah.
They deserve the best, and that's fine, right? But as you said, like, sometimes, they are running, let's say, from negative circumstances, but part of them is still with, their culture, and some of their behaviors sort of stick with them, right? Which part of me understands. It's not like it's easy to get rid of some of those traits,
Yeah.
right? But
Like, especially right at the beginning, of course, right?
exactly,
Everything is
exactly.
new. Everything's a bit, I imagine nerve-wracking or probably a bit intimidating, of course.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But like, I guess when it comes down to it, man, like, it depends on the person, right? Like, you and I, we could accept them or we could deny it, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
But it depends on, I guess, where you stand, like, morally, right? Because I guess, let's say, just as an example, right? I'm working in my job, and I find out, that, I get hurt, and I take some time off, and I come back and I find out that I've been replaced by someone, right? And I find out that this person has recently immigrated to Canada. They've immigrated, let's say, from England or something like that. I don't know, for just an example's sake, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, my perspective would be, like, hued in terms of how I think immigration is. Like, I guess, like, people have that negative notion of immigration, right? Because they think that they're gonna get replaced in all their jobs, or like
Uh,
criminal activity is gonna rise, stuff like that. I don't know. Like, I don't know how people try and justify it sometimes, right?
It's true, man. Like, just that point that you just touched on right now, that's something that for sure a lot of people would think about, like, which jobs are they going to be having or whose jobs are they going to be taking, because I know for a fact when my family came to Canada, my dad was looking for work, desperately looking for work. His had no word of a lie, man. This is true. His first job was picking vegetables on a farm field. He would go out, get cabbages, take out carrots, pluck out tomatoes. Like, that was his job,
Man,
man.
that's some
For
hard work, man. That's some
Yeah,
hard
I don't
work.
know how long he was doing that for, but I'm telling you, and he was with a group of other Hispanics as well who also immigrated to Canada. As soon as they found out that they got a job, they didn't care what it was, but they were the happiest people ever, knowing that they were going to work, going to make money and provide for their families. But yeah, man, like, those types of jobs are just brutal.
And that's what it comes down to, right? It sucks that, like, we have to be, like, even, like, you take example of our neighbors, like the U.S., right? A lot of those people that do immigrate end up doing the jobs that no one really wants to do, right?
Yeah,
And, a job is a job, right? It's still honest money, it's still clean money, so I can't take anything away from it, right? But in reality, it's tough, right? Because, you know, I one of my profs told me this, that, it really made me think. He was in Toronto, and basically he had been following the process of bringing a lot of the Syrian refugees. So he had been following a lot of the updates, and et cetera, and et cetera.
hmm
Um, and he, in his condo, there was a lot of people, I guess, hosting them. so bringing them so they could eat there and they could sleep. And so I don't know like the full details, but basically they were, I guess in a sense, bringing them over and sort of introducing them to the culture, right? The Canadian
Yeah.
culture, right? But he went down to his garage, to the condo garage, and he started warming up his cars in the winter. And the Syrian family that he had just seen at the condo came down as well. And he's like, "Oh, I guess they're getting a ride from that person that brought them over." And no, they were getting into their car. And he stayed a bit just to sort of see what was up. And he saw them pull out of the car in a Suburban of that year, right? And he asked them, he's like, "Hey, who provided you guys? Were you guys able to?" He sort of said it in a discreet way, so not to be too obvious, right?
Yeah.
Who was able? Were you guys able to find a home, et cetera, et cetera? And after the discussion, right, the conclusion was drawn that the government had provided them with these things, right?
Yep.
Uh, and I'm like, I was a little shocked. I'm like, I understand that they have been through some things back home,
Yeah.
but
And also that they probably don't have anything. They
yeah,
could
no, for
do
sure,
anything,
for sure,
right?
right? You always got to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure a Suburban is a very, very pricey starting car, man. Um, like even like I dream of having a Suburban one day, like a
Mm-hmm.
GMC Suburban, man. Like holy moly, sorry, Chevy Suburban, that's my bad. Um, but you know what I mean? Like those things aren't cheap, right? But
Yeah.
but
100%, man. 100%.
like I don't know if they're doing that for every immigrant. Obviously that's not the case because they definitely didn't do that when our parents came here, right? But
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
maybe I don't know. Like it's such a tough thing, man. Because
Yeah, it's not to say that like, oh, you guys have it so nice, how we had it. We had to start from like a room in a basement and we had to work our way. Like, I don't want to
exactly,
get in, I don't want to get into that, right? Like,
yeah,
maybe at that time, uh, it was considered great or what it was considered awesome. Like again, like it, it's hard to say because when you were coming from a similar situation like they come from, or from what we come from, whatever you get, we're gonna be happy, we're gonna be thankful, we're gonna be blessed. But of course, but when you when you also think about like how I don't know how much more they're getting, like you say, a very nice vehicle, maybe a very nice house as well. It's just like, either uh, somehow the economy has shifted so much to a point where they're able to, or the funds were there, or like again, like yeah, like I don't know what the criteria is for them to get this. Like I remember one time actually, I was at a train go station. I was waiting for uh, the next one to get back to, I think, to Toronto,
hmm
and I'm pretty sure I fell upon a huge Syrian family. I can't really clarify that they were, but just judging by uh, the language they were speaking,
yeah,
uh, by their action, and just looking like these guys just coming, from a country. That was my first uh, conclusion. And of course, during that time as well, that's when the senior Syrian war was happening, and when it was finishing,
okay,
and when
okay,
Canada was accepting the Syrians
yeah,
immigrants. And there was a lot of them. So I wonder too, is it by the numbers? Is it by what they have, or yeah, like you said, what indeed is the criteria for them to get all these type of possessions,
yeah.
or if
Like
it's just
it's
rentals, or maybe
yeah,
it's just
exactly, exactly. Like I know for a fact that uh someone we know like Harrison, his one of his friends, his father owns the Howard Johnson on Fairway, so it's in Kitchener. He owns a hotel in Kitchener, Ontario,
Mhm.
and what had happened is that basically the government had deemed that as a refuge for all the Syrian refugees, right? So he is in a position where he is not getting paid by the government enough to host all. At that time, I believe it was roughly a year and a half ago, um, to host all these families, and it was roughly around 30 to 40 families, which is a lot of people, man. Um,
Yeah.
And I remember being at work and someone saying that they had just stopped by the Howard Johnson, and I'm like, a part of me understands that these people, they're just trying to escape, man. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to forget about what they just came from. But at the same time, there's a man running a business that is getting compensation for that, but not to the point where you can help 30 to 40 families, right? But at the same time, man, I don't know. Immigration is tough, man, because at the end of the day, man, there's so many immigrants working that it bolsters the economy to another level.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like an endless debate whether it's good or bad, right? It's
Yeah, that's very true. Because there's so much that we could learn from other cultures as well, like what their practices or what are their moral beliefs are, kind of a thing. Like I'll tell you a quick interesting story that when I was living in Toronto,
okay, okay.
where I used to stay, the homeowner was a Polish lady, an elderly Polish lady, and of course she immigrated to Canada, you know, during a time of like pre-World War II or post-World War II or during World War II kind of a thing,
Oh, so
right? She comes from that kind of from life, and her and I were having a conversation, and it was again during the time of when Canada was going to be accepting a bunch of Syrian refugees. And she actually told me like, this is a terrible idea. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, they're all a bunch of murderers, they're all a bunch of killers, this is dangerous, how can they come over? I'm like, that's not true. Like, not all of them are gonna, they're all trying to escape what's happening. You can't just assume that they're all gonna be those type of people, that they're all criminals. And it, again, for me, it was just something that I found very hypocritical, that you know didn't you come from something similar like that? And
yeah, no,
how
that's true.
can you say no to them when Canada, of course at that time Canada was probably like accepting anyone into the country because they were looking for people to come to Canada. But again, it just comes back to like, I can't say no to anyone.
Yeah, like it's unreal, man. Because and that's the thing when it comes to these things, right? And it comes down like we're Hispanic, right? There's a lot of Hispanic immigrants, whether it be the U.S. or Canada, right? And
Yep. Watch,
and
watch, watch a bunch of Venezuelans now coming to Canada too.
yeah, all that going on there and there is tough too, man. Like holy moly,
That's
like they're
that's another topic on itself. Oh my goodness.
man, they're going through like some tough times, man. And then the crazy thing, if you think about what's going on in Venezuela, the only way that's going to change is if their leadership gets completely like destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they gotta go, right?
Yep.
But when going back to that to the to the immigration, right? It's like even with Latinos or Hispanics and African Americans, let's say, for some odd reason, right? Regardless who you are and who you have been, right? You could have been a perfect person in the past. You will still have this negative, like, sort of cognition of what people think of you, right? They'd be
Mm.
like, oh, he comes from, let's say, for example, Colombia. He may somehow be related to some type of drug trade, or he's Mexican. There's just like and it's crazy, like, because it sounds like pretty ignorant, right? But the moment you get to the U.S., you realize that people there are fairly ignorant, and they start saying these
Yeah,
things,
man.
right?
Yeah.
Right, like the fact that I am Latino doesn't mean that I'm gang banging, doesn't mean that I'm running with MS-13,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? And same thing with a lot of these Syrian and Muslim immigrants, right? It doesn't mean that they're ready to blow your church up, right? That is the radical Islamics, right?
Yeah. The radical extremists.
Which is a completely different thing, right?
Yeah.
They've separated themselves from sort of what you could say the bunch, right? Like I have an Arabic friend, and he's a really nice guy, probably one of the best friends I've had. Um, and I can't say I haven't tried to do anything illicit, and he hasn't tried to do anything illicit, because we're just two normal people, man. And it's sometimes like I really don't know if it's just like a higher sense of like patriarchy, that we have.
Hmm.
That like maybe we're just so dedicated to our country or whatever it may be, or to our leader, that like we just don't want anyone threatening like our culture, right? Like it's insane, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I wonder too, man. It's just one of those things that, for sure it's not something we think about a lot, but every time that something like this happens, it's once again another thing that, like, man, what are we doing?
Yeah, man. Exactly.
What are we doing?
Like it's I don't know, man. Like you said, like it feels like we go backwards sometimes, man. Like in society.
Yeah. It's you hear that one saying, like, we have to learn from our history uh to not repeat it, you
Hmm.
know. But it just seems like we're just in an endless cycle that seems like we're getting somewhere, but then we're back to zero. We
Yeah.
get somewhere else, we're back to zero. Like, I remember actually during, like, the times of, like, say 9/11 and, like, the war of Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff, and just this stigma and just this presentation, this propaganda of Muslims as a whole, like, that they're all apparently these radical extremists. But then after a while there was, like, no issues with the Muslims or anything like that. And then this news report came out, like, are Muslims actually great people? And then they showed
It's
about all
crazy.
these interviews of, like, people, like, the, the Islam religion is, like, it's a peace religion. It's nothing of war. It's nothing of hate or anything like that. But then something once again happens, some kind of war or some kind of attack or something like that, and again it's pointed towards the Islamic people, the Islamic religion, the Muslims, and then again it just becomes another repeat thing. We're like, okay, no, we're cutting that story out. Now it's back to the stigma. It's
Yeah.
just
It's crazy, man. Because those stigmas are like what like ruin society, man.
yeah.
In actuality, like it's like
Well, ruins society, and and unfortunately, like, in this era, in this day and age, like, we're all about social media and media, like, everything through our phones that we look and we see, and then sadly, like, we jump to a conclusion and we just assume that whatever is preached online is, like, that's the truth.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
man. It's sad, man. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's like we're so dependent on it, right? That like, and it's crazy because you see it regardless of the articles online or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like you see like the specific wording they choose for certain things, right? Like
100%.
like I was following um the New Zealand shooter, right?
Yep.
And I was just shocked, man, because not once did I see an article that said terrible person or um, this man committed a hideous crime or something like that. But I would see articles with the titles of like poor child brought up in a dangerous home, child didn't know what was doing, father's influence led him to commit these things. But then you see all the hate towards any other person that isn't Caucasian. Now, and I'll tread
Yeah.
carefully when I say that, right? Um, um, like at one point, I remember seeing an article about someone who had been part of a bombing, which by no means is good. I'm not condoning that, but the article title was "Monster Kills 14 People on Train," and of course, it just happened to be an Arabic person, right?
Hmm.
So, I'm just like, what's going on here, right? You
Yeah,
know what I
man.
mean? Like, is a stigma that like every Caucasian male or female that commits a crime, are they just naturally attached to a terrible past? Is
Yeah.
that's just the excuse you're basically going to give every single one of them? Like it's crazy, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
man. Like, that was something I wanted actually to touch upon. Like, I wonder, for that man in New Zealand who did that attack. I wonder if, and I guess they already are, if they're gonna put that attachment of mental health issues.
Oh,
You know,
of course, man. Of
because, like, I
course.
hear in the States, like, with a lot of the Caucasian shooters or killers or mass shootings, like, at some point they have to always attach at the end. It turns out we found out that this individual has mental health issues, and then it just seems always to be attached to that. But when it comes to, say, I don't know, some Hispanic or an Asian or African American, they just put the title as gang member, thug.
Yeah. or he meant to do it. He
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy, dude. It's
Hmm.
crazy. Like even with that, like even mental health on its own, like like it sucks because them doing that, like them saying that like a serial killer or someone that just committed a terrible crime, suffers from mental health. It just sort of belittles so many other people actually going through, tough things in a terrible state of mental health, right?
Yep.
They sort of just say, oh, he has mental health, so he's just going to do this. When in
Yeah.
reality, it's so much deeper than that, right? You know what I mean? Like, mental health isn't going to, well, in most cases, it's not going to make you kill people purposefully, right?
Hmm.
Out of spite. Mental health, sadly or not, it's a fight, between you and your deepest parts, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like it's a battle in your mind, right? And it sucks because there's not really like much anyone can do for you. It's not like they can like hear your thoughts and be there like sort of guiding you every voice or everything that you say in your mind, right? So it's terrible because as you said, it creates that stigma, and then it sticks, man. It sticks. Like
Hmm.
part of me, and I always tell my parents this, like part of me just wishes that these stigmas never existed, man. But they have existed for so long, and they just don't change. They never disappear, and it's sad because from time to time people will commit crimes, people will do these things, and it's always like the people that have already that have this stigma already on them, which worsens it even more, right? But that's completely up to them, right? But that's insane, dude. It's insane.
Yeah. Like, and even if this man uh, does have some sort of mental health issue, like you can't have some sort of mental health issue and then automatically be programmed to have a sort of hatred towards a specific group of people. There
Exactly.
has to be some sort of source to that. So whether it becomes to either his environment or the people that he's with, that have shown him this, and he's just learned to, like, okay, when I see this type of person, they're evil, they're bad, or they're bombers, or they're killers as well. There's so many factors that come into this. But again, I just think that, culture, every type of person has their own culture, their own upbringing, and I can understand, that, when a certain people view another type of people, they only have one certain way because they see the negativity, they only see the evil, they only see the bad of it, so that just becomes educated into their minds.
Exactly.
But if somehow, just like Canada, just like Toronto, the multicultural city of the world, capital of the world, we have all these different nations, and you just got to somehow educate yourself of these other type of cultures. Like for me, man, like I have so many friends from different parts of the world, and I always, uh, for my own self, try to educate myself of their culture. Try to learn something of their language, or especially of something of their cuisine, of their food as well, man. Like
Mm.
just to be, if I can say, for lack of a better term, culturized.
Yeah, yeah.
Just indulge myself with these other types of people, not just my own type of people. Whether you're white, whether you're Asian, whether you're West Indian, East Indian, whether you're African, whether you're Caribbean, like, it don't matter. You know, just staying away from these people isn't gonna do anything.
And I think that's something so essential for us, like even just as humans, like to be able to understand one another, see our differences, see our similarities, and sort of use that to grow as a community,
Yeah,
right?
because I get it, man. Like, because I get it. Like, I can see where there be certain things that I don't like. By like a specific group of people, say like, these people are too loud, or the way they act, or too much attitude, or too much
Mhm.
sass, or like, or their etiquette is improper when they're in a certain area.
Yeah, yeah,
I can see that for sure, right? But like, hey, it can be the same thing as them viewing myself or my people and saying like, man, these Latinos, they're I don't know, they're way too sexual, or they're way too sing-song, or the way they talk is so annoying, or like it's something that's such a back and forth thing, and it's something that I think we never actually bring forth to them. Like, they're like this way, and yeah, I don't like it, but I of course it's something that you can't really change of them, but like that's something I think about, like how do you approach this to them, if this is their culture, this is how they are, but I don't like it and it bugs me, or and if it bugs the rest of us, is it as easy just to be like, hey, you guys do this, we don't like it, is there something that we do that you don't like, and then we just, oh, like, hey, we won't do that anymore, and then like we shake hands, like I wonder how that kind of thing would be resolved.
Yeah, that would be different, man. Like it's like wow, that like if anything, like I guess if we start with Canada, I guess we sort of got something good going on, right? You
Mhm.
know, it could still be improved, right? But as for the rest of the world, right? Um, I feel like it would have to start with your leader, right? And even an obvious example would be Donald Trump, right? Regardless of whether he is right in what he says or not, he does create a lot of negative notions around you know people that aren't American, right?
Yeah.
And and like people maybe are just never gonna change because their leader is always like that, right? And even if they're like it makes you think, like even if for some odd reason he were to lose this next term and not be in the office, right? um he already awoke those like thoughts and those prejudices in these people, right? Like even in the election, no one thought that he was going to have that much support, right? So basically, it just means that it's deep rooted in these people, and regardless if it was George Bush, Obama, or let's say it could have been Hillary Clinton, they would have still had those like lingering thoughts, like
Mhm.
deep down, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know, maybe if it's just our sense of like security that we feel like we're threatened. Like I don't know that we don't want to change. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough. Like
Well, I think it's actually that what you just said, man. Like a lot of people are just afraid of change, man. Like for an example, a lot of the baby boomers with so much happening, like they're used to their style of life from where they come, because that's how they grew up. That's what was comfortable to them. That's what was correct. But
exactly,
now
exactly.
in this era that we're living, like a lot of them don't want to let go of who they are, of what their beliefs are, their morals, kind of a thing. Which there is some validity with that, right? Like I can really, for sure, learn a lot and take a lot from seniors, but also, this just gives us like a heads up to like, hey, with what's going on right now, are we going to be in that same position, or is it going to be different?
Exactly. Like it begs that question, right? And it's insane, man. Like this stuff makes you think, man, because like in actuality, like a country is only as strong as the people that are in it, right? It's
Mm.
like like we could have, let's say we could bring in 1 million, for example, immigrants, right? And if we all like leave our differences aside, man, dude, I'm telling you, the country would boom, dude. We would have communities that
Yeah.
are loving, accepting. Like it's insane, man.
That, and also just like, man, honestly, you know what needs to happen? Just everybody just do like every now and then, wherever, whichever neighborhood you're at, just do some sort of like, the good old days where people would just like barbecue on the streets or do like
Yeah,
lemonade stands.
yeah, like a neighborhood get together.
Yeah, man, just like go out and just like whip up something of like your people's food, because everybody loves food,
That's
man.
true, man. That's true, dude.
You cannot deny, the gravity force that like just brings you to food, man. I cannot tell you, like, man, just actually today a friend of mine posted a picture on Snapchat, and it was Lebanese food, and I knew it right away, and I told her, like, is that Lebanese food? And she's like, yeah, how did you know? Like, oh my goodness. And
Dude,
I
man.
told her, man, like, Lebanese food, man. I was like, oh man, it's been a minute since I had it,
Oof.
and I can just imagine, like, I've had like food from Ethiopia. I've had food from like what was used to be known as Yugoslavia, you know. Of course, all of our Hispanic families, you know, from different countries. It's just uh, if there's something like, you know, people can like have their likes and dislikes about, you know, music or you know, the cultures, of course, but food, man, if it
Mhm.
tastes good, you're gonna love it, and you're gonna enjoy it, even if it
Bro.
looks weird or like that. But as soon as it enters your mouth and you just, man, like even Indian food, man, like curries or samosas,
Yeah.
like there's just so many
It's a bond that
goodness.
ties us all, man.
Yeah, man.
Food, dude. Food. Straight up, man. Like
That's why,
it's
like,
crazy.
sorry, keep going.
No. You go. That's my bad. I interrupted you.
That's why, like, I love when, like, when I was in Toronto, man, like, when you go to Kensington Market, when you go to Chinatown, when you go to Little Italy, Little Portugal, like, and they have or the festivals, man, like the Greek festival, the Polish festival, like, man, for me, like, that's a moment where, like, people just need to, like, you know, step out of their comfort zone, you
Yeah.
know, and just indulge and like that is a perfect time too, just to be exposed to that culture, to be exposed to food and the music and the people, you know.
Exactly.
Like I would love to, you know, like, you know, to go to like to experience like the food of the Syrian people, like, you know, the Afghani people have had a bit, the Iraqi people I would love to try, but like it's just you can't deny, you know, when you put that deliciousness in your mouth, man, when it comes to shawarma or like
Oh, yeah.
kebabs,
Oh man.
and especially when they fuse foods together, man, like shawarma,
Oh, bruh,
poutine,
man.
like, oh my lord.
Brother, man. You got me thinking about food at 10:30 at night, man.
I'm
Oh
telling you,
my
man.
goodness, man. No, but straight up, man. Like that's what it comes down to, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like I even joke around like with my family. I'm saying that like after you know, Hispanic food, like pupusas, tacos, whatever it is, right?
Mm,
Um, you know, Arabian food's up there for me, man. You know what I mean? The way they prepare their meats, man,
my
their
lord, yeah.
chicken and their rice. Oh my goodness, it's from another world, man.
Yeah,
And it's
man.
just like, and I'm like I could just see myself connecting with someone eating right beside me and be like, yo, this is good stuff, man. Like you guys make good food, and then you
Yeah.
know, and like maybe him one day trying like a Mexican taco or like an enchilada. You know, for those who don't know, that's just like a fried tortilla with some toppings on it, right? Um, and you know, and if he likes it, right? You know what I mean? And there you go. You know, he's gonna remember, yo, that food tasted so good, right? It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Like I can't tell you how many times that I would be in an environment where just somebody has something from their country and everybody just, yo, what is that? You know, and then like they just look at that person and they're like, excuse me, sorry to bother you, but what are you having? You know, it smells amazing. And then they just go on, but like where they're from and like what it is in it. And like that happens so much, man. Like just recently, like I was having a study group for stats, and she's a Jamaican girl, and she actually had Jamaican, no, not Jamaican rice. It was actually an Nigerian rice,
Nigerian
jollof.
rice.
Yeah, I think it's called jollof. But as soon as she busted that rice dish out, like maybe for the Nigerians, it's nothing to them. But again, for someone who isn't really experienced Nigerian food, I'm like, man, that smells good. And
Mm,
I
that's
actually
smelling
tried
bomb,
some.
man.
My dude, I tried. Someone was like, "Oh my goodness gracious!" And of course, I had to ask, like, "How do you do this? You know, how do you make this?"
Dude, that's what it's all about, man. You
I'm
know what I mean? Like,
telling you, man.
like if we just like it took time and just thought about something so simple as food, dude. Like you said, man, something so simple as that, man.
Yep.
Like, you could literally just appreciate someone's culture just by that. Like,
And
you
like
may,
again, yeah, and that can be the easiest like icebreaker ever. Just, oh my goodness, what are you having? Like,
yeah, that's so true, man. Like, I tell my mom this, man. Like, when I'm at work, like, I'll bring lunch, right? And I only do have Caucasian coworkers, right?
hmm
So I'll heat it up in the microwave, and then and it's upstairs, and I'll just hear, "What is that?" and I'm having carne asada, which is like barbecue beef, right? So, that even just that is new to them. Beef isn't new,
Yeah.
but just the way of cooking it is, right?
Yeah, the way it's
And
prepared and all that. Oh my
exactly.
Lord, yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my goodness, it smells so good." So I'll give them a bit, and they're like, "Wow, this tastes good."
Yeah,
And
man.
they're like, "Wow, I want to eat more like Hispanic food." And that's just like something simple and maybe a joke, but it stays in their mind and be like, "Oh, remember that one time I tried that? It was good." Right? So,
That's all it takes, man. And like from right there, a bond is created, a relationship is created like that. It takes away so much awkwardness or tension or just, I don't know, fear of trying to say hi or hello or to connect to someone differently. Like, a perfect example would be like, at the bus stop, like a lot I would see now is just a bunch of students, just glued to their phones or just glued with headphones or music on,
yeah.
and no one is talking to anyone. But as I'm telling you, as soon as the moment that, I open something that I made that, of course, is Hispanic influence, and then just the smell just starts to go around everyone's nose, that just immediately,
It
takes
just catches
everyone's
their eye,
attention.
right?
Yeah, man, their nose just like wakes them up like from their phones or from their music, and then like, and they all look around and like, a conversation is born from that, and of course, like you said, man, like people start questioning, people start asking, and then they want to figure out more and they want to know more, and that just promotes to be more enriched and more indulged into that culture, whichever, it doesn't have to be Hispanic, it could be any other country, any nationality.
Exactly,
And then
man.
from there you become, I guess, culturized or just more educated about the individual. And you know what will that do? Man, I'm telling you, as soon like I'm no word of a lie, man. Like a lot of my friends from Yugoslavia, like I know a lot about their culture. Like I know a lot of their sayings and their language. I know a lot about their foods, and I can't tell you how many times that I would meet uh, someone from Yugoslavia in a different place, whether it be actually here in Sudbury or in Toronto, and I would just listen to the way they talk, and I would recognize like, "Hey, are you from here?" And they would say like, "Yeah, how do you know?" And then I would talk in their language, and then be like, "Oh my goodness!" And then I would tell them about their food, like, "Oh my good," like,
It's like, whoa, what's going on, man?
bro, man, just the way that they react to it is just like, man, like you make their day, cause like, hey, man, like take it for us, like if any person were to come up to us and be like, "Man, I love your people soon." Like, "Oh yeah, what do you like, tacos?" Like, no, no, hey, because everyone thinks tacos. But when they say something that you're not expecting, like say carne
Exactly.
asada, or say like
Yeah.
pupusas, or say like I don't know, man, like tostadas or
Yeah.
enchiladas, or
Or
something that
like
is
sopa
not,
de pollo, something like that, right?
yeah, man, 100%, or like gallo pinto for the Nicaraguenses, man,
Yeah.
like it's. And then when they say, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, yeah, that, like, how do you know about that?" And like then like, yeah, and I have it with tortillas of corn. Like it can't be like a fall. Like, "Oh my good, yo, that man."
It's like your heart starts to melt. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, man. It's just I love when that happens. So when I see others who like react the similar way, like again, man, that is, you go from complete stranger to like instant connection where like you have that commonality right there. You have that foundation, like, wow, this guy knows a lot about my people. Like that's, I don't know, for me, I find like that's an instant like moment of respect.
Yeah, man. It's like sort of you regain a bit of like hope in humanity again, right? Because you're like, wow, dude, you cared about about my culture for a bit, right? And
Yeah,
and like I may be going in too deep, right? But even then, just the fact that they wanted to try that, right? Even
yeah,
just something simple like that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm not one to sort of always go to McDonald's, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, like, man, Lord forbid, man, I'd get bored of that. Like, I get bored of that too quickly, right?
100%, man.
You know what I mean? And like,
That's why I hate about McDonald's, man. They're always open, and then it's like there's nothing else, but like you
yeah,
have to give in to them.
you have to from time to time, you have to give in to that, man, to
Yeah,
that Big
man.
Mac, man. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. But just to sort of switch up the pace here, I was reading up an article on uh, on on MAID, so like medical assisted um, uh, in dying, I believe is the term. I don't
Yeah,
know if
medical assistance in dying.
medical assistance in dying. So thank you for correct. Um, would you care just elaborating what it really entails for those who don't know what it is? Like it's
Yeah, for sure, man. Um, so what essentially this program does, in its basic form, is that it allows a patient, whether they're a senior, an older adult, or whether they're in their midlife, or whether actually I think they're as a teen, as long as they have their ability to give consent and they are capable, uh, and they don't foresee death, but they are struggling with a pain that uh, is not cured by medication or drugs, or they're exhausted or tired by the amount of medication and drugs. So what this program does is that, for more of a sense for seniors, I'm going to just go and focus on adults, because there's a lot of instances where we know that you get to an age where you're either in the hospital or you're either in the long-term care, and for a lot of them, they're bedridden. They don't live a normal life that you and I live, that we can, go to place to place, walk on our feet, go to work, live this life that we don't think about, but that we take so granted. But for these older adults, that they're completely bedridden, that day in and day out, they don't move, they don't get up. All they do is get up to eat, maybe do an activity depending what their long-term care does for them.
yeah.
And then they're suffering by this excruciating pain that there's no cure, but they don't have a foreseeable sight of death at any point soon. So what this program does is that it gives them a chance to uh, say goodbye, to have a death, to give them a chance to, take ownership of their life and say, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to continue to live this quote unquote life. So I want to end it. So that's what essentially MAID is. It's a way for these people uh, to die by either a nurse or a physician or a doctor who is licensed to give these drugs into their system.
Okay, so it's now like it's man, it's tough sort of putting your shoes into someone that's going through that, right? Like
100%, man. And for me, for you and I, especially, we both are Christians. We have, what I mean by that is that we've accepted Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior,
yeah.
baptized by the Holy Spirit, and we believe that God is the Father. So this topic has always, for me, uh, has been something that is just a conflict, an internal conflict. You know, I've worked in long-term care. I've seen individuals in constant pain, suffering pain, and to those who just, to the point that they're taking all these drugs and it's still not enough, or they just don't want to, or they're just so exhausted of taking 20 pills a day or whatever the case is, and they're not doing anything. Like, they're just sitting there and they have no, like, what kind of quality of life is that really? And to think that, they have this sort of a way of committing suicide just to be free from all of it. I understand that there's nothing for them, so there is this way out. But then again, as we know, we cannot kill ourselves.
Yeah, like it's man, it's ugh, like it's a tough topic, man, right? Like
Yeah.
there was ironically I was reading the story about Donald Lowe, um and he was a former physician from what I believe, and he like man, dude, I watched the video where he sort of explains what he's going through, and it broke my heart, man, because like you can
Yeah.
see the man is struggling, dude.
Yeah.
And I mean, like he's going through some like what I would classify as real pain, man.
Yeah.
And
Real agonizing physical pain, man. It's
like so basically, I guess what the guy had, he was terminally ill with a brain tumor, right? He was almost deaf. He had one eye closed. And the crazy thing is that throughout all of this, he's talking about his imminent death. like he's talking about it, and then what it's going to look like, and he starts saying that he knows what the end is going to look like. So sort of how his final maybe months or days are going to look like, and that's what makes him scared, right? Because like he's already struggling, and man, I don't know, man. Like it's obviously, like as a Christian, you're sort of put in that crossroads, right?
Yeah.
We are taught to believe, and we believe that suicide on its own, which in a way this is a form of suicide, right?
Yeah.
Is wrong, right? And in turn would lead you not to go to heaven, right? But right, I guess what it is it's our humanity side of things. It's understanding how people are going through this, right? And like I to this point, I don't know, has it been legalized in areas, or is this still like an ongoing debate?
Yeah, so in certain provinces, it has been legalized. They are practicing it. And the nice thing is that, well, I don't know if I can, I guess if it is nice or not, but um, physicians and nurses and doctors who are licensed to do it, they do have the right to say no to performing this task. So
Oh, okay. So okay.
yeah, so they're not forced to do it. Like, say if there's a conflict of interest, like just say you and myself, being Christians, we say we know that is wrong. If those nurses or doctors have similar beliefs, they do have the right to say no to it, and then but they do have to make a referral to someone else who is
Who
willing
is?
to do it.
Oh, okay. So
Which
that's how it
is
works. Okay.
yeah, so which is the big issue at the moment right now, because we just recently had a speaker come in talking about this, and the problem that is right now is just finding physicians and nurses and doctors who are willing to do this type of practice. Uh, and as of right now, there isn't many. The amount of cases are rising in in every city, but the issue right now is finding those who are able to do it.
Like, is it finding those that are able and willing to do it, or just that are able to do it?
Yeah, good correction. That they're able and they are willing to do it.
Because like, do you think that like it's these
More
people
willing.
that, yeah, like, do you think like I'm assuming they have to get some type of license or some type of like permission to be able to do this, or
Yeah, there is that legal side of it, of course, because at the end of the day, you are, assisting someone to die, you know.
yeah. Um,
So there is a lot of complications with that, but of course, you have your family that comes in, you have your decision makers, you have the lawyers come in, you have, if if the individual is capable to give that, sort of decision or not. But apparently, from what the speakers told us, is that the one thing that not really shocked me, but like, just got me thinking more once again is that he would say that, for those individuals in that situation, once the question came up to them and they hear that there's a program, that there's a way to, you know, to alleviate from all of this, they, without thinking, would jump right on it. And
wow,
that would be like the happiest that the nursing staff has ever seen that individual in a long time.
that's insane, man.
Isn't that It's crazy to think about, right? Like somebody's so happy to like say like, "Oh my goodness, I can die," like again for us, that's crazy to think, but being in their shoes, forever how long they've been suffering and knowing that there's no way out, but knowing that there is now a way out is
Yeah, like it's
crazy.
it's crazy, man. It's mind blowing because you know you can think of, let's say, like a terminally ill, a patient, right? Um, Naturally, after taking so many medications, right, your body is not the same, right?
Yeah, man.
After so many treatments, your body's not the same, right? Right. So as I said, like part of me gets that, and like, and even as like, and sort of, putting any beliefs we have, right, aside, even just morally, sometimes you feel conflicted too, right? Because you
Yeah.
get where they're coming from, right? Because you don't want people to suffer too. Like if I was ever in a position that someone I loved was, going through something, man, dude, if I saw them like day after day, moment after moment, coughing up blood, and the doctor tells me, they have, for example, a week to live. Let's
Hmm.
just for the sake of it, right? and they are constantly like puking their guts out, whatever it may be, living the worst life they possibly could, man. That breaks your heart, man.
Yeah.
And you know, as I said, this is always going to be a controversial subject, regardless if you have any religious beliefs or not. It's going to come down to like your morality, right? Like you know if you feel comfortable with it, right? At the end of the day, like personally, I don't agree with it. Just
Yeah.
because like man, it's so awkward because
Yeah, man.
like
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like you feel for some of these people too, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just like
Yeah, man.
when
You definitely sympathize for sure.
because like me saying that I don't believe in it and I don't agree with it is almost like belittling what some of these people are going through, right? Because that's tough, man. That's tough, dude. Like it's and the thing is, maybe too, it's the perspective that I've had. Like like you said, I am not in their position, right? So I can't assume what the best way of handling it would be, right? But at the same time, it's up to them, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, man. Like, and that's
um,
the thing too, right? Because at that point of their lifetime, a lot of their autonomy has been taken away. You
yeah,
know,
for sure, for sure.
their meals are decided for them, when they bathe, when they dress,
That's insane.
when they take medication. Like their entire rights of doing anything of apparently their life is no longer existent. So just imagine that, man, for being in like that kind of lifestyle for I don't know, like 5 years, 10 years, like whatever
No,
it
man, it's
is,
insane.
and then just hearing for that one moment of like, what? I can make a decision on my on behalf of my like my own will. Like this moment, I can finally have some sort of dignity, some sort of autonomy. Like it's Pete, and like I said, man, like when the speaker said that, like these people, when they heard about it, they jumped right onto it. It's intense, man. It's crazy.
Like, it's I don't know, man. Like it's a tough thing, right? It's like, you know, it's what I could how could I call this? It's like a slippery slope, right? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's um, it's you're man, like I'm sort of left speechless when it comes to these things, right? Because part of me thinks that it's the right of the competent terminally ill person to avoid their excruciating pain, right? It's their right. I can't take that away from them. Like I believe to a certain extent in where it's legal. I guess they must have changed something in the Charter of Rights, right? So it is legal in those places, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm asking myself, like, do we want doctors sort of making that executive decision, right? Right, and at the end of the day, as I said, it comes down to who they are, right? If they morally agree with it, and if they feel compelled to do it, right, that's on them, right? Um, like I have nothing against them. All power to them. They're doing their work, right? But man, it's such an awkward topic, dude. Like
Yeah,
it's
it is, man. And something else that I want to share with you as well that the speaker brought up, like one of the students asked a question, asking, you know, how does the patient feel, uh, or how are they expressing their thoughts when they themselves are come from a religious background, more specifically Christian.
like a Christian background.
Yeah, right. And this, I really, really shot my ear into this one because I was like, oh my goodness, because I know how I would react, and I can probably assume how
Hmm.
you would react. But he said these individuals who come from this religious background, Christian, they were still relieved to know that there is a way out, that they jumped on the opportunity. So for me, in my head, like again, like I don't know how this would like I can't imagine being in their position, but me, like right now, I'm telling you, if I was in their shoes, I would never say or agree to that,
Yeah, yeah,
we because as one of the commandments, like we cannot kill ourselves, we cannot do that kind of a thing. uh, but just to know that these people would jump right onto it, like again, like it makes me also wonder as well, like what's the relationship like at that time, like were they actually Christians, or was it just more of a title, like did they stop practicing? Like again, there's so much context that's left out that uh, can definitely uh, aid this kind of uh, I guess debate that we're trying to finalize. But it's something that amazes me as well, that as believers, when we have this kind of relationship with God, with Christ, then when we walk the path of Christ, act like Him, speak like Him, you and I, we fully believe that at any time can be our last day, and
yeah,
whatever He decides, as He decides.
yeah. And that's in reality, like even to those that, let's say, aren't Christian, right? Um, like you know, as you said, you know, you're against it. I'm against it, right? Maybe it's just unsettling for me. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like I understand it, right? I'm not gonna belittle what they believe and what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not in their shoes, right? And that's what it comes down to, I think, just perspective, right? So maybe we don't agree with it, right? But I am not going to go ahead and judge someone for doing it, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
like it's the moment I start doing that, right? Like I'm sort of saying, I know what you're going through. It's not that bad. If you'd have just done this, like sort of like I've got all the answers to their problem, right? You know what I mean? Like it's which in reality, if that were the case, they wouldn't be in that situation, right? Uh,
Exactly.
so like like as you said, it's just gonna be a matter in between you and God, or as I said, it could be any religion, right? I don't know if this is generally accepted in various religions, right? But I think it comes down to like a sense of humanity too, right? Like you know, God has a purpose for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Life, there are endless situations. Whether you're a believer or not, you're gonna face situations that you don't understand sometimes, and that's just the nature of it, right? That it's uncontrollable. But you know what I mean? It's just our job to sort of take each day as it comes, right? Live one day at a time, right? And sort of see where that takes us, right? And this is probably going to be something that's going to be debated until like it's either legalized in the whole country or legalized internationally, whatever it may be, right? But
Yeah.
right, like
Because
I
this
think,
is something that will for sure become more publicized and a lot more advocated for
oh,
those
of course,
in similar situations. Because as soon as one senior in that similar situation hears about someone else taking this program, for without question, they're gonna be, hey, what about me?
yeah, like in reality, like I think this is what if I were the one to make an executive decision, right, and even having the beliefs that I have, right, in the moment, um, you just set up like an institution for people that want to do it, right? Maybe I would feel morally obligated to not do it, whatever it may be, but you got to give people the choice, right? Even if you analyze it in an aspect of God, right? God wasn't a person that is going to force you into doing something.
Mm.
Um, I'm not going to force someone into, believing that it is right or wrong. That's, something that eventually you're going to figure out in life, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
do believe that they can have the option, right? That's their right, right? In those places that it's legal, it's literally their legal right to do so if they want to.
Yeah.
And who am I to stop that, right? If anything, I'd be infringing on their human rights. So you know what I mean? Like we can give people the option, but whether we agree with them doing it or not, that's up to us, right? But as they can have that option to do it, right? And it's tough, dude. It's tough, dude. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like it's you can never wrap your head around these things because, like, even us talking about this, it sounds really easy and stuff, but we're not going through that stuff either, right? So
Yeah, there's no way at this point in time we can say that we can relate or somewhat imagine that we can think like, oh yeah, I can somewhat sympathize for you, but
we
or
can't.
empathize
Yeah,
for you, but we can.
exactly, man. And then that's what makes it so hard, right? Because I don't want to make it seem like I'm all this and all that, right? Because these people are going through some real difficulties, some real troubles, right? Um, but as I said, at the end of the day, the decision comes down to them, right? I am not one to judge. They have free will, um, and if they feel like it's their choice, then so be it, right? All the power to them. But as I said, it's not going to affect me, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to make it
Yeah.
sound like it's like terrible, right? But you know, when
See, I sometimes think of like a lot of what ifs, and I'll just say this one thing, and then that'd be the end of it. But sometimes I wonder, like, how like right now there's a rise of mental illnesses down in the age like 65 or above or anything like that with dementia or
yes,
Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or
yes,
Louis,
yes,
like all these types of illnesses. Sometimes I wonder, like, what if our own, uh, I don't know, family member or like, or another family member in Christ were to develop that kind of type of disease or illness, and it comes to a point where they're no longer able to make any decisions or communicate or understand what's going on, but they're also suffering through some kind of like excruciating pain where they don't have a foreseeable death. It puts, this is something that I wonder, like, man, how would we go about this?
that's true, man. That's true. You know why? Because like that's tough, man. As I said, like it's so like it's easier said than done for us, right? We just
Right?
say it's wrong, and but the moment something like that happens, man, that's tough, dude. That's tough. Um, wow. You know why? Like it's wow, that got me thinking, man. That's
Yeah, because it's we can say right now, like, all we have to do is, we are believers of prayer and all that, which is true, and God is in control, of course, and He can do miracles still to this day, and which is also true. But again, to be in that position and just to think for a moment, like,
yeah, like to think that you could be in a position where you don't know when you're gonna die. You know you have excruciating pain. You know that you're going through some type of mental illness, which even if you didn't have one, going through some type of uh, traumatic experience like that type of pain, you will develop either some form of depression, something, right?
yeah, yeah,
Which is going to
exactly.
lead to some things that are even worse, right? Um, and it's tough, dude. It's tough. It's tough, right? Like it's as I said, like it's I don't know, man. I don't know. It's I'm sort of left like just drawing a blank here because right, oftentimes like we think that that like all our customs and our beliefs are the best way to go, but there are things like this that sort of question that, right, and sort of
Yeah,
make us really think critically and say, hey, you know, what if we did that, or what if this happens, or what are you going to do if this and this occurred and then led you to make this decision, right? I don't know, man. Like, there's some questions that we may not ever really get the answers to, right? And it's tough because,
yeah,
you know, like if, it would hurt my heart ever seeing family, make that decision and me telling them that I don't agree, let's say, with the act of them, taking their life medically, right? But if that's what helps them find peace, man, then who am I to take that away from them, right?
yeah,
Like that's what it comes down to, right? I as you said, like I'm not going to give up the faith. You continue praying, continue doing your thing, believing in God and His Word, right? But I am not going to take away that possibility from them. They can do their thing. As I said, everyone has free will, and they can be accountable for that, right? And if they think that that's the best choice, then so be it, right?
Exactly, man. Like, life wasn't like how it used to be, where like, you're born, you have a great childhood, you play outside, do all this stuff, you go to school, you graduate, you get a 9 to 5 job, you get married, you have a family, you grow old, and then you die peacefully. Now it's becoming more abstract than that now.
Yeah, all these little things, man. Like, it comes to medical assistance in dying, healthcare, all these things, jobs, immigration, all these things. Now we're finding ourselves that we have to worry about these things, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, just even just starting this podcast, I'm like, do you really think like they would have even bothered talking about this stuff like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, right?
Right.
I don't know what the problems or what could have been happening in those years, right? But it's just unreal how the times have changed now, right? And how like our priorities and everything have sort of shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. It's unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah, the way that life is just changing and evolving it's why, yeah.
Like it's insane that like as humans sometimes we say that we're progressing, in technology and in knowledge and in all these little aspects, right? But you look back at what we've done and what we're doing, and it sort of seems like we're at a standstill. We're advancing in certain things, but then, we're going backwards in some other things, right? So, yeah, man. But just to sort of end off the night, I appreciate you, accepting the invitation to come out to the podcast, man. It means a lot.
No problem, my brother. Yeah, thank you for having me.
It means a lot. So, we'll be connecting soon. To have you back again on the podcast, and hopefully we'll be having like an in-person one. I was changing up the setup right now, just working on that a bit, and hopefully that goes well, man. So I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you for you being open and willing to discuss these things, man. It means a lot, dude, for real.
And that's a wrap. I thank you guys for tuning in into the Savage Spatula Podcast. I appreciate the support. Just make sure to tune in April 12th. That's when the next episode is going to come out. And hopefully we've got something special cooked up for then. See ya.